Greetings from Planet Oz. Hello, friends. Oz here from Planet Oz, and happy Halloween month to you Earthlings. As you can see, I got my Skeksis outfit, and I made this myself with my wife. I don't exactly remember how much this was touched upon in the original movie, but if you watch the new TV series that came out a year or two ago, it's pretty wild, because even though Thra, the planet in which the stories of the Dark Crystal take place, even though that's another planet, and you could say that everything on that planet is an extraterrestrial, it's still the case, according to the series anyway, that the Skeksis are extraterrestrials, even in the context of the story. So as the story goes, in the series, the Skeksis came from another planet down to Thra, and then they sort of subverted and took over and kind of started to rule over the population based on drawing energy from the people there. So they were kind of like using the Dark Crystal to pull the energy out of the beings that were there and the light, so to speak, and take it for themselves. And I just think that's interesting, perhaps a nod to the same source as I just recently made a film called Our Reptilian ET Overlords Explained, and the correlations, I'm sure, would not be lost on you in this if you were to watch the Dark Crystal waiting for sound. Yeah, so if you watch that Dark Crystal series, it's it's intentionally or not, it's kind of telling the same story, basically. And so anyway, it's cool. I'm a fan. They canceled season 2, so I don't know if we're going to see it unless someone else buys it, but the Dark Crystal is awesome. And so particularly this one, the scientist who has his eye thing. So cool. So anyway, now that I've spent several minutes talking about my hat, let's get into the topic of today's conversation, which is okay, I had to make a cut there because I had spent so much time talking about my Skeksis hat, I forgot what the topic of today's film was. So the topic of today's film is, do dreams illustrate a core truth of our reality? And this question comes up when you might hear it, I've heard it, when people have asked somebody else, knowledgeable and whatever, all things esoteric, or maybe even a particular body of work, but someone will say, well, what is an other self? Or what is an other self in a dream, when you're dreaming? And so it's an interesting question for us to ask ourselves, who are the other selves when we're dreaming? The one explanation of that is all of the other selves are actually us. So this kind of makes sense. We think of the dream being something that's manifest solely in the individual's consciousness while they're sleeping, and therefore if a friend or a relative or an enemy or anybody else makes an appearance in the dream, we don't panic and presume they've somehow figured out a way to invade our consciousness, and that they're dreamscaping their way into our heads and manipulating things and whatever. We don't really think of it that way. We think that even though they look like someone we might know, and speak like them, maybe act like them, nonetheless, what we are seeing in the dream is manifest by us. So we are creating. We create all people. We create all material, all buildings, all interactions, and for what it's worth, the rules also. So this is presumed to be all created by us when we are in a dream. And so when people start looking into esoteric stuff and they start considering things that might be true, or considering the possible true nature of things, such as extraterrestrials or cryptid creatures that are not supposed to exist, but people talk about, everything from Bigfoot, Loch Ness, trolls, fairies, all of that stuff. Spirituality, astral projecting, having an astral body, having chakras, all of this stuff. When people start putting this all together, it leads to some different questions, which is related to the idea that if this is all true, if we're seeing this paranormal phenomena and that's true, then we're into this place of asking this question of, well, if it's true, what is the nature of the reality that includes all of that stuff? We are currently given the impression that the reality we live in does not include all of that stuff, that any chatter about these things being real are just the whims of overactive imaginations, and when we dream, it's nothing but our brains kind of reorganizing things, and so we see all this chaotic randomness. But the question here, it relates to this idea that when if people come to believe, or at least strongly consider some of these more kind of paranormal or esoteric concepts and think of them as true, or ask very seriously if they are true, and are looking for a way to explain the world that might allow for all of this. One of the things, a good description that I've heard and I like, is that we're all coexisting in a shared lucid dream. So the lucid dream makes sense in a lot of ways. It's like a very slow to manifest lucid dream. It might be so slow, in fact, that we don't see the results of what we're manifesting for some time after we have manifested this, and consequently we lose the association. We lose track of the fact that we made it ourselves during that delay. By the time it gets to us, it seems like the universe is just acting of its own accord, and we are just an ant in the stream flowing down at the mercy of whatever whim the direction of this universe takes. We're not creating it. But then others argue that we are creating it, and this lucid dream concept does kind of make sense, except that it goes one step further in the idea that it's shared. And or not. There's a spiritual philosophy, and I always get the name I always butcher it, but I think it's like solipsism or something to that effect, in which it is the belief of the experiencer that they are the only one, that they are the only one having the experience, that there aren't any other people. And I guess people make this argument related to all is one. You know, there's one creator, there's one everything. We are all part of one. We are individuations of the one. But this is a little bit different. This isn't quite that. This is basically saying that as you walk this planet and you walk around this realm and you're looking around, there aren't any other people. It's just you are creating it and you're creating all of them. So depending on how far back you go and how deep you go with this, it can ring as true or just sound weird. But the idea that this is a lucid dream shared by none, I don't know. That's for y'all to decide. What resonated more for me personally was this idea that it's a lucid dream shared by us all. So it's a lucid dream in which we are constructing the entire fabric of it. We are building the chairs, the ground, the buildings, the sky, and we are seeing the other sparks. We're seeing the other individuations of consciousness. However, we distort them to fit whatever is the theme of our dream, and we distort the locations, and we kind of rebuild the world from the building blocks that we have uncovered in our regular day-to-day life. So the idea of this shared aspect, a shared lucid dream, in essence gives way to the co-creation idea, where then you would say, okay, well, all of these people are in the same lucid dream, they're sharing it, and they are manifesting everything. And what this could potentially result in, if this is a true understanding of the reality the way it's made up here, what this would basically mean is that the stuff that seems the most solid to us, these things, the buildings, the rock, the earthly elements, the earth, air, fire, and water, this is stuff that is the most solid because it has the most agreement. The maximum number of dreamers in the lucid dream are basically manifesting the world according to a particular belief about how it would work. And therefore, when we all agree on these things, we get really solid stuff like concrete and rock and sand and water. So that would be the manifestation of the world. But as we get into animals, they start to be perceived differently. People will have an idea about an entire species of animal, and somebody else will have a very different view of them. And I would suggest that perhaps these views on animals vary to a greater degree than views on what we would call inanimate things like rock and water and stuff like that. The reason that these views would differ to a greater degree is because there's consciousness there. So there's consciousness in the rock and the water too, but being that it isn't all that active, you pretty much have to have a terrible experience with an avalanche, or a terrible experience in water, or a terrible experience with fire. All of these things can happen, but they aren't that common. And when someone has one of these experiences, that might lead to a very negative opinion of these. But compare that to the animal kingdom, and you'll find it's something very, very different. Because with the animal kingdom, people have all manner of experiences with the personalities of these animals and their nature. And so consequently, because animals have personalities, because they have a nature of somewhat autonomy and their own principles of motion, those things end up giving rise to opinions that people have about it. And so our perspectives on the animals are different. And so in this way of thinking, while we are building the same lucid dream, we don't experience the same commonality among the animal kingdom. The animal kingdom is much more fluid. It's moving and it's changing and it's evolving a lot more so from our point of view than the rock or the water. This gets taken to an even greater extent when it involves other people, because now you have very complex consciousnesses, individuated beings that have their own agenda, their own principles of motion, they're doing their own thing. And this incredible diversity allows for an incredible diversity of interpreting those people. And therefore, the human population, the other selves that we see walking among us, they're going to vary so greatly in how we see them, despite the fact that we are, according to this analogy, we are all living in one huge lucid dream, and we're sharing it. So perhaps it's possible in the lucid dream, if you were in a lucid dream, you might say, I want to fly now, and you would go fly. And in your dream, you could shape the reactions of other people however you wanted. They might think nothing of it. They might be totally amazed. It would be up to you. You're creating the whole world. So in that way, it calls into question when we see other selves and they react to the things that we experience in our particular unique lens of this dream, then what was the person's reaction, for example? Is that their true reaction, or is that the perception that we have of them? This is an ongoing thing. We're doing this all day, every day. We're perceiving people, we're perceiving ourselves, we look in the mirror. I'm going to do a series of films about this with some animation, all about this idea of how we see ourselves and we see other people. But it kind of dovetails with this lucid dream concept in the idea essentially that a human being is a vibration, or more accurately, a very complex network of vibration, and therefore our senses can interpret the vibration in vastly different ways. This leads to the incredible diversity of opinion that people have about other people. So that's the ongoing challenge of understanding, I suppose, the other self when it comes to questioning the nature of our reality. And I just felt like the idea of living in a lucid dream does tend to answer a lot of esoteric paranormal questions in a kind of nice and neat way, because if we were to think of all that we observe as some sort of incredible lucid dream, then it stands to reason that the wild imaginings, perhaps the negative, scary, dark imaginings of our collective paranoia and fear would manifest as they would in a dream. You know, it's like when I was a kid, if I had a run-in with a spider in the garage, there was a high probability that I was going to dream or have a bad dream that involved spiders the evening after this encounter. So we kind of think of dreams working that way and manifesting these experiences that we have. And so in that case, I was making scary dreams for myself based on scary experience. So yeah, when it comes to the paranormal and ghosts and Skinwalker Ranch and all of that stuff, it would make sense, per this grand idea, that if what we are experiencing is actually a shared lucid dream, then that lucid dream is going to manifest the darkness, the confusion, and the fear that we have collectively into the shapes that we would give it. Are there, werewolves coming out? Are there demons? Are there wraiths? Are there these dark, shadowy creatures and characters? So we would create all of that, and we would manifest it collectively. Of course, the reverse is true. The more of us that collectively believe in a positive, peaceful world, the more they say what you put out you get back. So the more love and positivity people put back in this way of thinking would mean that as a collective we are elevating the vibration of the collective lucid dream. So all together we try to erase fear, we try to erase these ideas of demons and creepy crawly and all of this stuff, not because they're real or not real inherently of themselves, but because we are making them real by investing in them our intention and attention. So the same, of course, would apply in reverse. Yeah, the bad, the good, we can perhaps elevate the whole vibration of this realm, increase the light, increase the peace, the harmony, and all these other things, if we were to view what we are experiencing as a collective lucid dream, and if we were then to contribute to that dream, the most positive, brightest, greatest. This would involve how we would view other players in the dream. You look at them, you look at another player, you got a million ways you can view that person. So, if we try the best we can to focus on viewing and interpreting and understanding that person in the best way, the most positive light for us both, would we not be contributing to the fabric of the realm? Are we not collectively growing it, improving it, evolving it, all of that stuff? It's an idea, but interesting one to think about, whether or not the lucid dream concept tells us, or dreams in general, do they illustrate a core concept of our reality? Maybe Christopher Nolan in that I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on the name. Inception, yes. On planetOZ we import films from Earth all the time. Yeah, Inception, you had that. So yeah, is that it? You never wake up. You're never fully awake. It's at least not the way that it's always been thought about, because such a waking reality does not exist. All we really have is deeper, denser, and different layers of dreaming and lucid dreaming. So anyway, I don't know. That's what I got for you today. Cheers, Godspeed. Hope y'all are having a good Halloween month from the Skeksis of planetOZ.